You'll see. Big plans going down in North London, in fact very big. Haringey Council is teaming up with a private consortium of developers for a £2 billion regeneration of Tottenham and Wood Green over the next 20 years. A fairly unusual setup in terms of scale alone, and at the outset it's worrying a lot of people who are concerned that it will drive out the poorest in the community. Dan Friedman reports.
After the riots here 5.5 years ago, Tottenham is changing. Back then, the need for regeneration was a common refrain. Now, it's becoming reality. But there is resistance.
Do not gift people's houses to a private developer and say you can demolish these and build new houses on them.
On Tuesday night, a large group of campaigners protested at a council meeting here in Haringey. The meeting was about plans for a £2 billion deal which would see the council partner up with a private developer to deliver 5,000 new homes in the area. They say it will transform the Broadwater Farm and Northumberland Park estates, as well as Wood Green town centre.
You're gifting the land before the people of Northumberland Park have been consulted about demolition. So what are you going to do? What do you do then? What is it?
This is a protest against the council handing over 7 council estates, 500 shops and businesses, and the redevelopment of Wood Green Town Centre to a private company. So, it's a joint venture company. A lot of these companies have been set up in recent years. This is the biggest one, I think, that any local authority has set up.
The move by the Labour-led council is also opposed by the local branch of Momentum activists, not far from Jeremy Corbyn's political backyard. Sam has lived on the Northumberland Park estate for more than 30 years.
We've been promised 3 times here that we were going to get a kitchen. Now they say, oh, well, maybe we'll just knock it all down. People have brought their families up here. People have got memories. It's not just a house. It's a home. It's where you've got memories. You've got old people who want to actually, die where they feel safe. You've got young people who feel safe here. But that's not the concern of the council. It's just pure profit. And nothing they say is going to make me think any different about that.
Residents are concerned that the changes that are going to be made are going to mean that property prices go up and people who've lived there for 30 odd years will no longer be able to afford to live there. Can you give them any guarantees that that's not the case?
We've been very clear with residents that affordable housing would be re-provided, people would be given a new home in the same area and would be given a new home at the same rent.
The problem is not unique to Haringey. Right across London you have estates in need of regeneration, councils that don't have any money, so they get involved with developers, but that brings the risk of gentrification and people who've lived in an area for decades being turfed out of their homes.
I think what we've done too often in the past in this country is that local authorities and the public sector generally have sold off land, sold off assets, and then just walked away from them. And this is an opportunity actually for the council to stay really involved in shaping the area and ensuring that as the area develops, the dividends go not just to the private developer, but to the public sector, to the borough and to the local community. So if they get it right, I think there's a real opportunity here, and I think it's an interesting model and a model that other boroughs are already exploring and will see a lot more of.
Despite all these assurances, for residents, the uncertainty is unnerving.
I have no idea what's going to happen, where I might have to go, if I'll be able to afford it. I'm very, very scared. Very scared.
Sam Leggett there, fearing for the future, Karen Buck, a Labour authority which isn't filling some local people with much confidence about what's going to happen through this building scheme.
And these big regeneration schemes are daunting. I mean, we've seen some pretty checkered examples of that, including the Barnet scheme. So, one understands people feel very worried and anxious about these. I mean, with Westminster, we've got a couple of these big schemes going on as well, and they haven't worked out too well.
But you support it? You support the model?
I think regeneration clearly has to happen. I mean, we need new house building. We need to upgrade and improve the homes in some of these estates. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get involved in the micro detail of Haringey's scheme because I don't know enough about it. But I do think that the councils are between a rock and a hard place in a lot of these things. They want to re-provision some of their housing stock. They want to improve the quality of some of it. Of course, they don't have any money. They don't have any money.
But do you accept that now? Have we moved to a kind of consensus, a post kind of conflict world in terms of housing, that you now accept some of the basic principles of set by the Conservatives? There's a certain amount of money. We want a certain amount of affordable housing, but we want a lot of private involvement.
Well, what I want, I mean, this is something that Sadiq has just come out and in the consultation that's going on at the moment, is I want to see such schemes going ahead with no loss of social housing, because that's a real crisis we're seeing in London. We're seeing the loss of social housing, and of course it's a genuine worry that when the lower cost home ownership properties, the leasehold properties and so forth, when they are rebuilt, they will often be at a higher value, and that can be a real challenge. But if local authorities need to build and they need to improve their stock, and the government isn't funding money for them, they don't have that many choices.
Have the details of this scheme come across your desk? I mean, you know about it. Are you familiar with it?
Not yet, but I think they're likely to be bids to. The government actually is giving money to estate regeneration. I think they're likely to bid for some of that money.
And is this a model that you absolutely approve of? Is this the way forward? They've, in effect, the council has kind of retained the kind of freehold, I suppose you could say, can't you, in shorthand? But the profits are being divided probably equally as well. I mean, why can't the council keep the land, but then put out the contract to build these homes with more money from you guys to ensure that there's more social housing?
Well, I think it makes great sense to try and bring in some private money to help do the work. You can get more done there for a given amount of government money. The problem here, it seems to me, is making sure that you take the local residents that live there with you. We desperately need more homes in London. I think also it's good to have a mixture of different types of housing together in one area, so those principles are fine. But what you've got to do if you're a council taking forward these schemes is you've got to engage with the people that live there now. Now, I think that was quite a moving film you showed there, and people saying, well, I don't know if I'm still going to be able to live here.
Yeah.
What rent
And we've seen that. Do you guarantee, or do you want to get involved in this and guarantee and say, I want you to make sure that no tenant is moved out or changes the conditions of their tenure? They stay in the same kind of property?
We've just published, actually, our guidance to councils that are doing this, and we say that engagement right at the start of the process with the people that live there, reassuring them...
Do you give that guarantee?
Yeah,
give those guarantees
no, absolutely.
to
I think it's very important that people that want to stay in an area can do so. And that there was a scheme recently in Southwark which actually failed on the CPO because they weren't able to reassure some of the leaseholders that they would be able to get to stay there. So it's really important. People have roots in these communities, and if they're forced to move because of property prices in London, they often can't stay anywhere near that area. So you've got to get those details right. But the principle that we desperately need more homes in London, and that some of these states offer an opportunity to both renovate what's there and provide some new housing.
The way that he approves of this kind of model, what do you say?
Well, I think absolutely that the consultation is critical. Absolutely. I think that the guarantee that people should be able to return to their area on equivalent tenancy, equivalent size of property is absolutely vital. I think it's vital that we keep not just social housing stock, but low-cost home ownership.
You don't actually make it essential that they return at an equal level. You're not interfering at that level, are you?
No, but our clear advice is that people should have, and not everyone will want to return to the same place. Not everyone will want the same.
Often do that. They want to stay in the same area.
Tenure, actually, people might want to change. But if people do want to return to that community in whatever kind of housing, we should be trying to support that, because what I want is these schemes to go forward as quickly as possible, and the key to making that happen is to not have this kind of resistance, because when you get people very concerned, actually it just delays the whole process and we don't get the homes that we desperately need.
Well, early days, we'll try and keep an eye on it. Thanks very much.
But the local connection doesn't apply to Westminster, but I'll have to talk to Gavin about that separately.
Yes.